All right, the next phylum in our survey of invertebrates is Mollusca. The mollusks are aquatic, mostly marine, although there are freshwater mollusks. This is spelled with a C, that's spelled with a K. Doesn't matter, either K or C is fine. The phylum Mollusca formally is spelled with a C, but if you just write mollusk, you can do that with a C or a K. Mostly in the ocean, but there are some clams. Maybe going out, you can go out to the Appomattox River, the James River, and you go a couple feet offshore, and you can dig your hand in the sand. You can pull up a bunch of clams. Clams are mollusks. There are some terrestrial mollusks like snails. There are about 100,000 species of mollusks on the planet as we speak. The name Mollusca of the phylum comes from the Latin, which means soft body, because mollusks have soft bodies in some form or another, not including shells, like clam shells, but the stuff inside is the animal, and that's kind of squishy. And I always say, think of slugs. You know, slugs that crawl on your concrete porch at night in the summertime. They're kind of squishy. Slugs are mollusks. So the phylum includes slugs, snails, both aquatic snails and terrestrial snails, clams, freshwater clams, oysters, which are marine, squids, octopuses, you can say octopi if you like, octopuses, and nautiluses. I don't know if you know what a nautilus is. I'll show you a picture, but that's an ancient form. I mean, they're still extant. They're still alive today, but it's an ancient form of mollusk, which I'll show you. Really fascinating creature. So while morphologies vary, most mollusks have these characteristics. They have a foot, a muscular foot they use for locomotion. They have a visceral mass. The tissue, all of your internal organs, stomach and intestines, we refer to that generally as the viscera. So the visceral mass is the location of the internal organs, not organa. It has, all mollusks have a mantle, which lays over the visceral mass. All mollusks have gills, which are respiratory structures. Not terrestrial. I said all mollusks have gills, but just in general, mollusks have gills. That's, of course, going to be your aquatic mollusks. They have a radula, which is a feeding organ. It's abrasive. It's sort of like a tongue-like structure, and some mollusks have a tooth-like structure. Like octopus, for instance, has a beak. That's the radula. And many mollusks have a shell. Octopuses do not have a shell, but many, like clams and oysters and snails, all have shells. They use a protective covering, and that shell is generally made out of calcium carbonate. All right, so let's look at some mollusk anatomy. Now, this of course is a snail, but we're just looking generally at things that mollusks have in common. There's the mouth, has a complete digestive system. There's the mouth. The radula in snails, it's really kind of small. You see it down there. It's sort of an abrasive tongue. And again, in some species, some genre, like with the squid and octopuses, it's like a beak. It's like a tooth. But there's a radula down there. Near the mouth, of course, obviously. There's the mouth. We have a crop here. There's a stomach. And look, there's a digestive gland. So in higher animals, you have, a pancreas. And, you have the gallbladder. All of those are digestive glands. So right here in this simple animal, the mollusk, we see yet another evolutionary advancement with this digestive gland. Here's the stomach, intestine there, and there's the anus. With snails, you can see how the digestive tract has been sort of flipped over because of the mantle and the shell. And so the anus here is very, very close to the mouth. Sometimes that can cause problems with snails. But the anus is there, the mouth is there, so we have a complete digestive tract. There's your coelom. Remember, these are coelomates. With regard to circulation, there's the heart. And this is an aquatic snail here. So there's the gill and a little blood vessel connected to the heart. That's where gas exchange occurs. And what else do we? Oh, there's the foot. Foot back here. This whole thing is the foot. Muscular structure that provides for movement. Visceral mass, just this whole area is the visceral mass where all the organs are located. Oh, yeah, there's the nerve ring and the two nerve cords for the nervous system. Nerve ring, not quite a brain, but certainly more sophisticated than cerebral ganglia. Okay, next on the menu is this second slide of notes for mollusks. So mollusks are triploblastic, 3 embryonic tissues. Remember, ectoderm outside, mesoderm middle, endoderm inside. They are coelomates. They have a true coelom. Their nervous system consists of a pharyngeal nerve ring, pharyngeal, that's in the neck area, nerve ring and 2 ventral nerve cords, as I showed you in the diagram. They have a complete digestive system, mouth, esophagus, stomach, intestine, and anus. The respiratory and circulatory systems varies with the class of organism, the class of mollusk, as we'll see when we look at some of these others, when we look at some of the classes. As far as reproduction goes, mollusks are dioecious, and fertilization occurs externally. So you have both male and female animals. Fertilization occurs externally, so the female lays the eggs, the male releases the sperm swim to the egg, fertilizes the egg, and there you go. Now, terrestrial mollusks include snails and slugs. Snails have a shell, of course. Slugs do not, as you know. And cephalopods. We have terrestrial mollusks, and cephalopods are squids and octopuses, and they are monoecious. All right. And there are 8 classes. We're not going to go through all the classes, but there are gastropods, cephalopods, and bivalves, and we will look at all 3 of those. So the first class are the gastropoda or the gastropods. Gastropoda means stomach, foot. So these are aquatic. They are both aquatic and terrestrial, and they consist of snails. They are your snails and your slugs. There's about 65,000 species on the planet as we speak. Their bodies are asymmetrical, can be asymmetrical. Some gastropods have shells like snails and conches. Others are shell-less like slugs. Now, torsion is this condition where shelled gastropods, where the mantle in gastropods with a shell, where the mantle and the visceral mass get flipped over, get rotated and flipped over like I showed you, so that the anus is above the gills. I said the anus is above the mouth, and that could cause problems, but the anus is above the gills because now when you're releasing waste material right above where you breathe, that can cause a problem. So the anus is right above the gills due to torsion. Now, torsion allows the head to be retracted into the shell for protection, so that's a good thing. Gastropods have well-defined head with tentacles and eyes. Again, simple eyes, but still eyes. More sophisticated than light spots in planaria, but not as sophisticated. As we'll see, the octopus eye is extremely sophisticated. So now, respiratorily speaking, the mantle covers the gills on aquatic gastropods, and the mantle acts as a lung on terrestrial gastropods. Now, the gastropods have primitive kidneys. Those are those digestive organs that I showed you earlier. Nephridia, a nephro pertains to kidneys. So these are primitive kidneys. And the operculum is a bony plate on the foot which is used as a lid to close the shell. Not all mollusks have an operculum, but those that do, right, have a lid that can, so they can withdraw into the shell, kind of like a turtle, and sort of like a box turtle. It has an operculum that pops closed, so the box turtle is hidden inside. If you come across a box turtle in the woods and you pick it up, I'm not liking box turtles, gastropods. Box turtles are not gastropods, but I am liking their opercula to the bony plate on the foot, which closes the shell to protect the animal inside. That's my point in all of that. Once again, here we see the snail, and once again, here we see the mantle in gray and the shell that are kind of flipped over, right, flipped back, so that the anus here is right next to the gills. So the anus releases waste material and the gills are taking in, right, oxygen from the water, from the environment. So that can cause a problem, that very close association. I think that's all I wanted to show you because we've looked at everything else before. So gastropod morphology. So here's just some images of different gastropods. So here's a terrestrial snail. There's the shell. And you can see how the foot is spread out here. And you can see the antennae, there are tentacles, with the little eyes are on the end of these things. So this guy can draw himself up into this shell for protection. That's a terrestrial snail. Here is a shell from a marine gastropod. I'm just showing you this so you can see the sophistication of nature. This is a shell from a marine snail with these barbs on it. So that certainly would help to defend this animal from predation. Here's a slug. This is just a generic brown slug. You can see the antenna up there, tentacles, and the little eye, little balls, little eyes. These are very much, they very much need a moist environment, gastropods. If they're not in the water, they need to be in a moist environment. So you always find snails, like here in Virginia, at night when the humidity is high and everything sort of gets covered in dew at night, then the slugs come out because everything is wet or everything is moist, because these animals need a moist environment in order to survive. If things dry up, these animals will die. As you might know if you have ever doused a slug with salt. Growing up, my mom taught me this trick. If you want to get rid of a slug, just pour salt on it. And what happens is the salt draws out all the moisture from the animal, and the animal dries up, no more slug. I'm not saying go out and kill slugs. I'm just saying that's what my mom taught me to do, and you might have done it also as a kid. Another interaction with the natural environment. That's all I'm saying. And here's a conch. Now this is a huge snail, right? Marine snail. This is just the shell part from a conch. And you know the snail is huge compared to this snail back here. I mean, this guy is huge, and people eat these. You know, they eat snails, escargot, right? In French, you can eat terrestrial snails, but people eat these gastropods, these large snails from the ocean. But also there's a culture that collects these shells, and if you blow through one end of it, right, it goes boop, right? Have you ever seen Lord of the Flies, right? They get a conch. They get a conch shell, and whoever has the shell is a person who can talk when they're in assembly. If you don't have the shell, you can't talk. When it's your turn to talk, they pass you the shell, the conch shell. That's good movie if you've never seen it. Let's go to the video. Zombie snails. This is just fun. That from Nat Geo Wild. This is just, it's like maybe 3 minutes long. It's pretty cool. But it's just, you know, some snails are not welcomed in some environments. Some are invasive. And that's what zombie snails is all about. See you on the other side. All right, the second class of mollusk that we want to look at are the Cephalopoda. Cephalopoda means head, that's the cephalopod, and podo means foot, so head foot animals. Some have shells, some do not have shells. There's about 800 species in the ecosystem as we speak. Now, cephalopods include squid, cuttlefish, both of those have shells. Nautiluses, I'll show you a picture, it has a shell, and octopuses, which obviously do not have shells. Now, squid and cuttlefish have reduced internal shells called the cuttlebone, made of calcium carbonate. Are you familiar with cuttlebone? Do you have a pet bird? Maybe you go to the pet store and you buy a cuttlebone for your bird so they can chew on it. That's the internal shell from a cuttlefish. Nautiluses have spiral shells with air chambers inside. Air chambers just help them maintain buoyancy in the water. And then we have octopuses that have no shell at all. Now, cephalopods, head-foot animals, are carnivorous predators, and they have beaks, as we'll see. They have a closed circulatory system now, which means there's a heart, there are blood vessels, but their blood is not iron-based like mammals, but it's copper-based. They have a well-developed nervous system with functional eyes. Is it a brain? We'll see. Chromatophores are cells that, chromo means color, so these are cells that have color pigments within them. And so cells contain color pigments, and so cephalopods have the ability to change their skin color to avoid predation or to attract mates. And I'm sure you've seen this on TV on Nova or Discovery Channel or Animal Planet, where the octopus swims along and it lands on a particular group of rocks and it changes the color of its skin to blend in with the rocks. So, and then octopuses can, when it's mating season, right, they can flash different bright colors on and off to attract mates. So that's what chromatophores are for. And their foot, instead of a single foot for movement like with snails, the cephalopod foot is divided into 8 arms. We call them tentacles. And those tentacles have suckers. And so you're familiar with the octopus with its long arms. There's 8 of them. You can count them unless one is broken off or torn off. And they have little suckers on them. But it's neat because each foot has each tentacle has its own ganglion. Now remember, a ganglion is a collection of nerve cells. So now some people, and in one source I read, it said an octopus has 9 brains, a central brain, and then each of its 8 arms has a brain. Again, to me, it's not a brain. It's not a sophisticated thing like a brain, like we call a brain, but it allows the octopus to control each arm individually. Octopuses are incredibly fascinating animals. Simple yet extremely sophisticated, as we'll see. Oh, so let's go to the video. This is Octopuses 101 from Nat Geo Wild. You got to watch it. I mean, octopuses are extremely fascinating and extremely sophisticated and very smart. So again, more on cephalopods. Now, cephalopods have a siphon that is used to expel water, and that's their primary source of locomotion. And so an octopus, for instance, will take in water and then blow it out through the siphon, and that's how it moves through the water. Each gill has its own heart. I put it in quotation marks. It's not a heart as such, but it is a circulatory organ that receives oxygen from the water through the gill. Nephridia, kidneys. Again, they're primitive, but they're used to excrete nitrogenous waste. Again, a little more sophisticated, though, because now we're dealing strictly with nitrogenous waste, and that's what our kidneys in higher animals, humans, mammals, do. They get rid of nitrogenous waste predominantly. Squids and octopuses secrete a dark ink. You've seen this before on television, I'm sure. The ink is a solution of melanin, and it comes from a special gland, and it's used to escape predators. And you've seen octopuses squirt out their ink. Now, cephalopods are dioecious. There are female squids and female octopuses and male octopuses, and the females may care for the eggs for an extended period of time. And here's another thing that again is evolutionarily more sophisticated, because before, when we talk about jellyfish, for instance, they just release eggs and they release sperm and they had to get fertilized, and they're pretty much the larvae are on their own. Here, the females can take care of their eggs, and that's a sophisticated mechanism to ensure survival of the species by protecting the eggs so that the eggs can hatch and propagate the species. Now, we're not to the point where once the eggs hatch, the female takes care of the young, but in, for instance, alligators and crocodiles, the females do take care of the young. And of course, in higher animals, and especially in humans, look, humans take care of their kids for, 18 years until they go off to college, go off to the military, or get a job and move out of the house, right? So there's lots of involvement there, parental involvement there, and it's beginning here as female octopuses, for instance, take care of their eggs, guard their eggs for an extended period of time. Okay, juvenile octopuses hatch directly from the eggs. There is no larval stage. So an octopus, when the egg hatches, it's an octopus, right? It doesn't go through a larva and doesn't go through further development. It's a little tiny baby octopus, and it goes on and swims away, and it could get eaten or not. And if it survives, then you're propagating the species. Another video. Okay, this is really cool. This is from Octolab TV. This is Octopus Intelligence Experiment. You have to watch it. It's just for your edification. But octopi, if you like that better, octopuses are extremely intelligent animals. It is said that octopuses can recognize people. So if you have a saltwater aquarium in your house and you have an octopus in there, it can begin to recognize you. If it's there long enough, it will recognize you. And then so if you So if it recognizes you, they've done an experiment where it recognizes a person, and then someone who comes in and feeds it every day. And then at the same time every day, that person comes in, feeds that octopus and pays attention to it and whatnot. And then that person puts on a mask, like a Halloween mask, and then goes in, and then that octopus will go berserk because it does not recognize that person, and it senses that person as either a predator or someone who's going to do some severe damage. Anyway, all that to say, octopuses are extremely intelligent. You got to watch this video. I'll see you on the other side. Okay, so here are just some images of different cephalopods, head-foot animals. This is your cuttlefish. You see its eye there. You see its tentacles here. Here is a squid, tentacles there. You can see its two eyes there. Looks similar to the cuttlefish, right? Remember, both of these have an internal skeleton. Not an endoskeleton like humans, but an internal skeleton. There's your octopus. You can see one big eye there. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so there's a hidden arm. There's 7 arms showing, and you can see little suckers on here. And that's a nautilus. This is a shell. Eye there. You can see the tentacles here. And these things were around millions and hundreds of millions of years ago. And they're still around today in very specified environment, very specific environments. You won't find them down at Virginia Beach for sure. And finally, here is an image of an octopus squirting some ink to get away from the bad guy, the bad diver who's taking this picture. All right, finally, we have the class Bivalva, or Bivalvia. Bi means two, valve means valvia comes from the word that means valve. So bivalves have 2 valves, or in other words, an animal with 2 shells. Mollusks with 2 shells, like clams and oysters and scallops. All bivalves are aquatic. However, there are marine varieties and there are freshwater varieties. Bivalves are triploblastic. Do I need to? Exoderm, mesoderm, endoderm. The shells are hinged. There are 2 muscles in there, an adductor and an abductor, muscles which open and close the shells respectively. The shells are flattened, in some there's a little bit of a profile. They have a wedge-shaped foot, but they do not have a head. Bivalves. Bivalves are filter feeders, obviously. They have no mouth. They have gills, but they have no mouth or radula, so they don't chew anything up. They're filter feeders. So the in-current siphon brings water in, and with that water comes food, plankton, if you will. And the excurrent siphon expels water, and they can also use that expelling water to move. So again, I've never been under the ocean to see a scallop move in the water, but I've seen videos. I've seen the videos on like Discovery Channel where scallops move through the water, and what they do is they squirt out water, kind of like the octopus, and that's how they move across the bottom of the ocean. Okay, bivalves have paired gills. Another evolutionary addition, right? Because we saw with snails, they have one gill. So now we have two gills here. So we have another evolutionary advancement. See how things are getting more and more complicated, more and more involved, more and more advanced. Nephridia excrete waste and control osmoregulation. That's the osmotic consistency or osmotic concentration within the animal, the salt concentration within the animal. Bivalves have eye spots located on the edge of the mantle. Now, these are not eyes like the octopus has eyes, but they are eye spots. They're not sophisticated eyes, but they are able to see light, and so they know when it's light and dark and whatever like that. But they're eye spots, but there are many of them on the edge of the mantle. Oysters are able to secrete mother of pearl, which is simply calcium carbonate, around foreign objects like a grain of sand, and that's where you get pearls from. The substance is calcium carbonate. Generically is calcium carbonate. We refer to it as mother of pearl, and that's where you get pearls from. They secrete this stuff around a foreign particle. Now, okay, so a grain of sand or something gets into the oyster and it irritates. So what the oyster does, it secretes the calcium carbonate around the grain of sand. Calcium carbonate, well, you know what pearls look like. Calcium carbonate, so they're very smooth, right? And so it's no longer an irritant. That's why they do this. They can't get rid of the irritant, so they just coat it with something that makes it less irritable. Here's bivalve anatomy. See, we have the incurrent siphon that brings water and food in. There's your gill, so we can extract oxygen from the water there. Here's the foot, right? And so when you eat like a scallop, you're eating the foot, right? So we have, okay, so the incurrent siphon brings in food. There's the intestine. Oh, there's the mouth way back here. All right, the mouth takes in the food. There's the stomach. There's the intestine. And the anus is over here. Open circulatory system. So there's the heart. And this is a gastrocele. Now what happens is remember it's copper based, but there's a circulatory fluid that gets pumped through the system, and then it gets just pumped into this gastrovascular cavity. And that's why it's open. A closed circulatory system would bring the blood back around to the heart. That's closed. So this is open circulation. There's the kidney. There's one of the muscles. There's the other muscle. But anyway, the nervous system. There's a ganglion back here and some nerve cords, but no brain as such. All right, that's bivalve anatomy. Two shells, two valves. Morphology, just here's some images. Here is a scallop, and you can see these little blue dots. Those are the eye spots on the edge of the mantle. Two valves, upper shell, lower shell. That's a scallop, that's marine. These are clams, so you can go down here to the Appomattox River or go out to the James River. You can walk just a couple of feet into the water offshore, and you can reach down into the sand and you can scoop up clams like this. I used to do it as a kid. We went to the river to fish. We used clams as fish bait, and you just reach down and scoop your hands into the sand and you pull out all of these clams. People eat them too. This is just to show you the different types of shell morphology. This is a scallop here. You can see there's one with some pricklies on it. There's one that's smooth. So different types of shell morphology in bivalves. And here is a bivalve on land. That's the big foot. That's the big muscular foot that helps this thing move around as well. And so when you eat a mussel or a clam or a scallop, you're eating that foot. And from NG Science, a video on all about mollusks. See you on the other side. All right, one final quick check. I think this is the final quick check. Which of the following statements about mollusks is true? Select all that apply. Your choices. Octopuses are dioecious. Cephalopods have closed circulatory systems. Torsion places the anus above the gills. All mollusks are triploblastic. And gastropods have eyes. So octopuses, you remember you have male octopus and you have a female octopus. So that means octopuses are dioecious, two sexes. Cephalopods have closed circulatory systems. Now cephalopods are head-foot animals, have closed circulatory systems. Remember, that's a sophistication, evolutionary advancement. So that's true. Torsion places the anus above the gills in the case of snails, and we saw that's true. All mollusks are triploblastic. All mollusks have the three embryonic germ layers: endoderm, mesoderm, ectoderm. And gastropods have eyes. And that's certainly true. Gastropods have eyes. Okay, mollusks, not just for breakfast anymore. Okay, do you like calamari? Calamari are the tentacles, are squid tentacles, deep fried. Do you enjoy those at Red Lobster? That's mollusk. Escargot, have you tried escargot? I never have, but here's escargot in lemon and some sort of olive oil based sauce there. Snails. You eat squid. Squid is big in a lot of Asian cultures. So here, squid, octopus. Octopuses is popular in a lot of Asian cultures. So here's octopus tentacles. You see little suction cups there. If you're familiar with that, or if you've ever eaten that, you've eaten mollusk. And then squid ink or octopus ink. This is squid ink soup. Now people have come to eat even the ink that these animals expel to escape predators. But again, in some cultures, this is a very popular dish, squid ink soup. That comes from a mollusk. And, oh, here's scallops, fried scallops. You like scallops basted in butter and lemon sauce? Herbed butter and lemon sauce? These are scallops. If you like scallops, you like mollusks. Preguntas? Any questions? That's the end of chapter 28, part 1. Part 2 is much, much shorter than this. All right. See you next time.